Hi there, and welcome to Let's Slow Down, a podcast for all of you who feel tired and stressed from this overwhelming world. Here we'll have fun, inspiring conversations about living life on our own terms and explore ways to ease the pace of our modern world, because life really is good when you're relaxed enough to be present for it. I'm your host, Annemarie Stolting, and I welcome you to this space where I hope to inspire you to slow down, because life is too short to let it go by in a blur. So take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy the show. Today I have Kristina Driscoll on the podcast. She's the host of the She's Brave podcast, a girlfriend's guide to the path less taken. She talks about how to be brave and resilient, and slowing down can help get you there. So welcome, Kristina. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I was thinking we could start out by you sharing your story, how and why you started She's Brave. Let's go from there.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I would say that I led a pretty normal, conventional life, but towards my late 20s, I got very interested in spirituality and self-development, psychology, just helping to improve myself. So I did a lot of reading, a lot of courses, and I think that really helped me grow as a human being and be more in touch and more aligned and more authentic with who I actually am as a person. So when I was in my early 30s, I signed up for a hike on Mount Rainier. It's this gigantic mountain outside of Seattle through a local hiking club called the Mountaineers. And I met my husband and our eyes locked at the trailhead. I got out of the car. He was the hike leader.
It's like a scene from a movie right now. I feel like
It totally is. He had these incredible blue-green eyes, and I felt this really strong connection to him, and I couldn't explain it. So, there were about 12 of us on the hike, and I thought, I have to talk to this guy. Gotta figure out who he is, and, I just was very curious. So, I made sure to get behind him a couple times during the hike, and
With the
it
11
just
other people, like, who's this one over here?
yeah, there might have been a little elbowing in there. Yeah, and then when we talked as we were hiking along, it just when you meet somebody and you just click
Yep.
and
Felt like
you
you've
can just
always
talk,
known him.
talk, talk, talk. So that was how it was. I didn't hear from him after that. But then a couple of weeks later, my phone rang. It was him. It was Bill Driscoll. And he said, "Hi, Christina. How would you like to get together for dinner and talk about finance?" Because we both were financial advisors. So I was kind of like, is this a date? Is this what is this?
Right.
And he was quite a bit older than me, but he was super fit. I could hardly keep up with him hiking. And I didn't really think much about the age, but he came and picked me up at 6 p.m. And next thing I knew, I was getting dropped off. It was 10 p.m. 4 hours had gone by in the blink of an eye, and we had talked nonstop, like we'd known each other our whole lives, and we just deeply connected. But as it turns out, he was actually 24 years older than me. So this was kind of the beginning of my unconventional life. It all happened quite quick with Bill. And so we got married and we really wanted children, but that didn't happen. So we did have to go through quite a bit of extensive fertility treatments and got through that. And we had our son, who was born in 2003. And we were living in a small town in Eugene, Oregon at the time. But the next sort of unusual thing that happened was when our son was about 5, my husband developed early onset Alzheimer's. And so that's a very strange and unusual thing to happen when you have a small child at home and then your husband is repeating things and that was really, really scary, really terrifying. And I wanted to move closer to my family, so we moved up to close to the Canadian border to be near my family. But then basically my husband declined quite a bit, so he he really wanted to be close to his family and he was right. He was the oldest of 4 and a very wonderful close-knit family and he really wanted to be close to them. And even in even then he was saying, I want to be near my people because he was word searching a lot. So he couldn't
Mhm.
think of what that word was, relatives. But so we moved to a suburb outside of Seattle, and he was right. I mean, they were so good to him throughout the whole journey, and it was the right decision. But my son really had a hard time adjusting to living in the suburb of Seattle. This is kind of the Microsoft, Amazon area,
Sure, sure.
and there's a lot of pressure on parents and kids here. So there was a lot of academic pressure in this area,
That's
and my
stressed,
son
very stressed.
yeah, yeah. So a few years went by, my son was really unhappy, and then when he was 13, he came to me. He's always been a kid who really knows what's best for him. I think he really is in touch with that. And he said, "Mom, I really wanna go to high school in Eugene, Oregon, where he was born and raised and where everyone knew him since he was a baby, and we'd still go back all the time, and, all my best friends were and his friends." But I said, "Honey, I can't really do that because your dad is here, the family's all around. If I move him down there, it's just me, and I
Mhm.
don't feel right about that." And so I said, "We've got to have to try to find some kind of solution." Well, then he came to me, and I was thinking about it. Then he came to me the next day and admitted that he had 4 suicidal friends. He was 13 years old,
Oh my goodness.
and he was trying to help them. And, he's always been a helper. He's been always been very compassionate child because of everything he went through. By the time he was 6 years old, he was heating up lunch for dad in the microwave because
Yeah.
dad didn't know how to use the microwave. So he'd be like, "Hey, dad, I'll help you."
Yeah.
So ding, ding, ding,
Older than his years, he had to grow up
Yeah.
fast. Mm.
Yeah, so he's always been a helper, and he was trying to help these 4 suicidal friends,
Oh my goodness.
and that really shook me up, and so I did something I've never done, I had never done before, but I literally went to my bedroom that night, and I prayed, and I didn't ask, I demanded that God give me a very clear answer as to whether I should send my son down to Eugene, Oregon or not. Because if I'd been a very selfish mom, I would have just said, "Oh, well, what are the neighbors gonna think? Like, what's everybody gonna think? They're all gonna think I'm a bad mom,
Right.
so I should keep him here to make me look good." But really, I needed to ask myself, what is the best thing for him? What
Yep.
is best for him? So I just said a prayer, let it go, woke up the next morning, went out to my mailbox, met my neighbor, next door neighbor, asked him how he's doing. He says, "Not good." I said, "What's going on?" He's like, "Well, my 16-year-old daughter has been in a mental institution for a week. She's having
Oh.
severe anxiety and depression, and she's had a nervous breakdown, basically." And this girl was brilliant. I mean, this girl was top of her class from the time she started in kindergarten in every Head Start program you could imagine. But she just cracked under all the
Yeah.
pressure. He looked straight at me, and I was just listening. And he said, "Yeah, I think we're gonna move back to Oregon." And I went, "What?" There you go. There's my answer. There's my answer. My
Wow.
next door neighbor is telling me that his daughter's not doing well and they are going to move back to Oregon. So that night, I got on the phone with one of my girlfriends in Eugene, who's Brazilian. And she said, "In Brazil, we do this all the time." She said, "Just send him down. It's going to be fine. If he doesn't like it, he can come back. Just have him live with us." And I mean, her son was my son's best friend. She was my best friend. It was all good. And so she became his Brazilian mama. And
Wow.
so he lived down there. He loved it because he had 2 brothers, because she has 2 boys. And then her boyfriend moved in with his son. So there were 4 boys in the house. It was madness and mayhem all the time.
What's one more at
What's
that
one
point?
more at this point, right?
What a great friend. What a great girlfriend for you and friend for him too.
Yeah, so
Ooh.
I was able to get a little condo and kinda go back and forth and take care of my husband.
How far of a drive is that?
Well, it's about a 6-hour drive. It's not close. You asked me about why I decided to start my podcast, but I haven't even finished telling you, some other unconventional stories.
Wow.
But I just feel really compelled to talk about being authentic to ourselves and not worrying about what other people think. I feel like we're all on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and I think we get so influenced that we're almost told, we're spoon-fed what we should like. But what we should like is a big house and a fancy car and a nice vacation. But really, is that actually who we are? Is that,
Is that actually
if
what we want, right?
is
We
that what
don't
we
even
really
think about
want?
it.
Like
Yeah.
we don't get authentic and we make a lot of decisions. I don't even think we realize we're doing it, but we make a lot of decisions based on worrying about what other people think of that decision. And I've I've had to make some really big decisions, really public decisions where it was unconventional, but I knew that it was the best for me and my family.
Yep, and that's really hard to do. It sounds like those decisions really did serve you. I mean, definitely talk about the path less taken.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And just so you know too, I mean, your podcast theme is about let's slow down. And that was really something that I did in my late 20s was that I was really carving out time for myself to learn about myself and even pray more and meditate more and do all of that stuff. And that theme has really continued and it continued throughout my journey with my husband. But I will admit, like I did, and I still do this thing where I write down 5 things every morning in a gratitude journal. There was at least one time I remember where I was so down with my husband and his whole situation and the decline that I couldn't write in my gratitude journal. And I kind of started beating myself up over it. And one of my friends said to me, just let it go. And so I let it go for about 2 weeks and then I was able to get back into it. But there's just kind of that interesting topic of how we all tell ourselves, oh, I need to write in my gratitude journal every day. I need to meditate. I need to do, these things. We can almost be too hard on ourselves
Yeah.
sometimes about these things.
They're not supposed to be a part of the chore to-do list. They're supposed to be part of lifestyle, right?
Right,
And I get that.
right.
I mean, I've been there too. Like, oh, I was supposed to do my yoga today, and it's like, no, I'm missing the point when I get like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like I think you and I have a really great connection because you're carving out a new life for yourself that works for you, whether other people understand it or not.
Yep.
For you, you're saying this world is going faster and faster and faster, but I need to slow down. And I feel the same way. Like, if you think about it, if you're on like all those things, if you have a Facebook, you have Instagram, you have TikTok, you have Twitter, think of how many messages and things that are coming into your brain, bombarding your brain all day long, if you're checking them all day long.
Yep.
Basically, it overwhelms the signals in your brain.
Yep.
And then it's really easy to see why anxiety levels are at an all-time high right now. And it can feel really debilitating, you
And
know?
I think it can feel very lonely and isolating when these phones are giving us this facade that we're connected more than ever, but we're sitting alone in a room, right? And feeling anxious. They're not true connections. They're not genuine. There's not a lot of meaning behind them. And you're right. We get bombarded with them from every single direction.
And I think it's kind of paralyzing
Yeah,
because like I think that it's really easy to just grab your phone and start scrolling because when you're doing that, you don't have to think about the deep things. Like you don't have to think about, wait a minute, is this how I really want to spend my day? Like
exactly. It's
what
just
do I want?
numbing.
Yeah, what do I want to do with my life? What's my theme? And it's scary. It's scary to step out and try to figure out your purpose. And honestly, when I started on this journey, my husband passed away 2 years ago, and a lot has happened since then. My son has graduated from high school, and this last summer, I kind of looked around and said, "What is my purpose?" And I had no idea what my purpose was. So I saw that Kathy Heller was having a podcast class. I said, that sounds interesting. I don't know if this is a good fit for me or not, but if it isn't, it'll lead to something else. I've got to get involved in something. And I knew that I wanted my voice to be heard because people would always say to me so often, I don't know how you do it. wow, you're so brave. You're this. And I'm like, I'm really not. But I learned how to be all those things over time. And I knew that had I not been able to put down my phone,
Yes. You
mm,
wouldn't have figured it out, or you'd still
I
be
wouldn't have
wondering.
figured it
Yeah.
out. I wouldn't have figured it out.
And, along with that, I love that, and I did the same thing, so thank you, Kathy Heller, because I
I
read her
know,
book.
right?
I had been
Yeah.
reading her book, and then I kinda
Uh-huh.
stumbled on her podcast and her
Mhm.
class as well, and I just loved it, and it really helped me find so much purpose and direction, and I felt like I had this voice that I had things I wanted to share, and I didn't really know how or in what way, and it was so helpful. But I'm reading a book now. It's by Jay Shetty. He has a podcast too, actually.
I actually listened to him as well.
So he's pretty awesome,
Yeah.
and he is a former monk, and the book is called Think Like a Monk,
Yes.
and it's really interesting, and I'm sure I'm gonna kind of butcher this story a little bit, but I'm gonna paraphrase it. It has to do with all these distractions that we see. So he said that one of his exercises he had to do was, look in this mirror, and it was a very dirty, grimy, cloudy mirror. So he had to look in the mirror and say what he saw. So he could barely see himself, and he had to clean it and keep wiping and wiping everything away until it was clear and he could see
Mhm.
himself. And they kind of said that's really like our world with all of our distractions.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we just keep doing all the things, or we're not even really taking a step back to see if we want to be doing those things, or what we should be pursuing, or where we're putting our energy, or do I even like these clothes? Am I just buying these clothes because that's what everyone else is wearing right now? Just all of it. And I thought, what a cool image. I have a really clear image of that in my head and what that looks like. And I'm like, yeah, I see that. We are, just like you said, bombarded with these messages from so many different places all day long, and they cloud our mirror.
They do. And then the other thing that is so true is that we live in a society where we have an attitude of more is better, like buy 2, get 1 free. Well, guess what? I just want 1 pair of pants. I don't need 3.
Yep,
And we somehow think that more is better, more is better, more is better. But is it though? Is it? I mean,
exactly. I feel like
what
that message is everywhere for sure. Like, even, me and my little 8-year-old were driving yesterday, and we drove past this really big, beautiful house. It was decorated, already decorated for Christmas. So for the audience listening, we are recording this in November. It's not even Thanksgiving yet. And this house was beautifully decorated already. I'm sure professionally decorated, really big house. And my 8-year-old's like, oh, I want to have a house like that one day. And I was like, "Well, that's interesting. Why?" She's like, "It's just so big. There's so many rooms." She's like, "Can you imagine playing hide and seek in there, mom? There'd be so many good hiding places." And I, growing up, I mean, that same thing. I was thinking, "Oh, the bigger the house, that's what you aspire for, right? Like the nicest car, the all of the stuff and the big stuff." And now I kind of think of it differently. I look at it as like so much to clean, so much to keep track of, so much to maintain. I like smaller, simpler. And it's taken me a long time to realize that, because talk about, also the path less taken. Everyone always wants more, more, more. And I have found such clarity and comfort and calm in decluttering and just having less everything. And I notice it with my family too. And I'm the biggest proponent of that. But um, the kids and even my husband, he was kind of the opposite way, but they've started to realize like, oh yeah, well now we know when you can actually see in your closet and see what you own or see what toys you have, then you can play with them. Then you can use them. Then you're not going and buying a double, because sometimes you get to the point where you have so much stuff you don't even know what you have.
definitely.
So then it's like, how can you appreciate it? And what's the point? And if that buy one, get one, even if it's 50% off, but if you don't need it, you're paying 50% more than you
Exactly. That is the whole thing.
if
That's
they really trick you.
they really trick you.
Yes.
Yeah, like I need 1 pair of pants, but you're telling me if I buy 2, I get a 3rd one free, and suddenly I'm buying 3 pairs.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Exactly. So, I'm with you. I mean, I feel like it's so much easier to really figure out what's important, figure out our purpose and what path we wanna go on when there is less of all of it, right? Stuff, distractions, all of it.
but I think this next story kind of ties into what we're talking about right now. So, another way I was very unconventional was that when my husband had to go under care, different family members, one family member actually came to me and they said to me, Please, if you want to move forward with your life, you're so much younger than he is. You've been sad and lonely for many years, like 7 years, because it's like you have a spouse, but you kind of don't
Right.
either. Basically, it was me taking care of 2 children, and wasn't ready to hear that at that point. But a couple years later, another family member, another sibling came, pulled me aside and said, please move forward with your life. You're so sad and you're so lonely. And even my son got it. Like, I remember sitting him down and saying, "Honey, like, do you remember how dad and I used to go out, like, on dinner dates, and we go to plays, and we go to movies, and we go to musicals?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "I really miss that, and I really want someone to do that with again." And he was like, "It's okay, mom. I understand. You're lonely. It's okay." And he was so smart about it all. So, that was a very unconventional decision to start moving forward with my life. My husband didn't recognize me anymore. He had even told long before I got Alzheimer's that, he wanted me to move forward with my life if this kind of scenario happened. So I just didn't apologize for it. I was very authentic and sure of my decision with all these decisions that I made. I've had a lot of people ask me, well, didn't people question you? Didn't they question you? You married a man 24 years older than you. Didn't they question you when you sent your kid down to Eugene? Didn't they question you when you start dating? You put up on Match profile and you're dating people, and my Match profile laid it all out in the line. I said, I am married. I was happily married. My husband has early onset of Alzheimer's. He doesn't recognize me. He's in a care home. I visit him every day. This is my life. I'm not getting divorced, but I'm looking for a companion. And it's just so interesting because I looked and looked and I kind of played that whole productivity game that we love to play in America.
Mm.
More is better. We're talking about the pairs of pants. I thought if I can go on as many dates as possible, eventually I'll hit the jackpot. But sometimes I think that this whole busyness, like the busier we get, this is why I love your concept of slowing down because I basically got myself so busy going on lots and lots of dates that I think I kind of pushed finding someone away. I mean, I pushed what I wanted, which was to find a companion. I pushed it away from myself by being so busy and so caught in date after date after date after date that I had to let go.
Yeah,
So
I could see
what
that. Just so
not
busy you couldn't even focus anymore probably on what you were looking for.
Yeah, and I think that you can get really fixated on what you want,
Yep.
and ironically, that actually pushes it away because
Mhm.
you're just so fixating on wanting, like, that's the primary emotion is if your primary emotion is wanting, you're not content, you're not happy, then you end up kind of pushing that thing that you want even further away. So I had to relax, let go, slow down. I hid my profile, but I had it open to a few people I had contacted at some point in time through Match, and I just let it go. I said, I give up. I surrendered. And a few months later, that's when my husband Blake reached out to me. And then everything just kind of came together.
Then you
I,
were
I just
ready.
I just wanted to include that story because I feel like what's so good about your podcast, Let's Slow Down, is I think there are times that we need space in order to allow things in our life. And the only way we get it is by slowing down.
Yep. Like you said, you're trying to accomplish a certain goal. You have a certain end game in mind. So our being human, our natural instinct is to do. Work, right? That's kind of what we're taught when we're little in school and
Right.
work harder, keep working harder. And it's almost like as we get older, we get to this point where we feel guilty if we're not constantly doing those things. Like even today, before this
Yeah.
podcast, before this
Mhm.
interview, I had a really bad headache. I get
Oh,
like little migraines once in a
yeah.
while. And
Yeah.
I felt it was coming. And I finally I laid down for an hour. I very rarely do that, but I think that's what my body needed because I felt so much better when I got up and I had a million other things to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be productive. But it took me like a lot of mental convincing because I was like, oh, I'm just going to sit down for a minute and then I'm going to keep going. And finally, I'm like, what am I doing? My whole thing that I'm working on right now is okay, listen to yourself, right? Listen to your body. If we get a little more intuitive, our
Yeah.
bodies really do tell us what we need
Yeah.
almost all the time, right? Your body
Yeah.
even told you when you met Bill, your body
Yes.
told you that, right? It's
That's
like
so true.
incredible how much.
Yeah.
But often I feel like, I mean, at least me, and it sounds like you, especially with this trying to find somebody, we get so caught up in that game that it's right there, but we miss it.
For sure.
And it actually helps you be more productive. And I think it helps you hit those goals if you do just slow down. So what other ways, like I know you said, all right, I'm giving up. I'm just gonna let this website, let match.com go for now. I'm not putting pressure on myself. What other types of things did you do that were helpful to kind of
Yeah.
keep your sanity?
I it's the old cliche. Hate to say it, but honestly, I did. I got up every morning. I did my gratitude journal of about 5 things, and then I did prayer and or meditation every day for about 20 minutes because I don't know why, but it really works. And it sounds so cliche. And to be honest, I am not there right now. Like I kind of just fell off the bandwagon when life got better again. But I think that's what got me through. I started again. I started at 3 minutes of trying to just meditate or pray or both. Then I increased it to 5 and now I'm at 10. But honestly, it's not a competition.
Right.
And I mean, I know that there's listeners out there that are saying, I don't even have 10 minutes. But you know what? You do have 3 minutes. You do. You can do 3 minutes. And what's interesting is somehow it even just a few minutes changes your brain. And after you do it for a few days, you don't want to miss it. You're like, oh, this actually feels
Yeah.
really
I
good.
I start my day that way as well. Yep. And then
And
when I do skip it, I do find that I miss it. I do miss it. And it just gives me such a nice path to start the morning with a little prayer, a little meditation, kind of that's when you can hear God talking to you or you can feel
yeah,
your thoughts and
yeah. But
again that
just
space.
Yeah, but just to be clear, like that was not the only thing that I did. Like I don't think that would be healthy if that was the only thing I did. I definitely sought help. I was always in therapy throughout those years, once a week. That was tremendous help. I sought medical help if I needed, if I was feeling depressed or anxious and working. I mean, I am just don't be ashamed to ask for help. Like we are a village. We help each other. I have amazing friends. I have amazing friends who were there for me the whole time, all of it. So you cannot be afraid to ask for help when you're in a really difficult time in your life. You have to reach out and get help from either, all sources, whether it be friends, family, or professionals. You
Yes.
you have
Yes.
to do that.
That's amazing. I'm so glad you made that a priority because we would go to the doctor if we had a fever and we had the flu or something, we'd go see a doctor. So if you're anxious and depressed, see a
Yep.
doctor. Go
Yep.
figure it out. I've done
Yeah.
the same thing and thank God because it's
Yeah.
so helpful. And you know what? We aren't made to do any of this alone. And it's so important to have a community. And like you said, have the professionals, have the friends, the loved ones, have all of it because you know what? I'm certain that all of your friends they wanted to be there for you. They wanted to help you. So just let them. It's only going to help you get through things easier. So I feel like we all for those reasons that we have this, I don't know if it's guilt or shame or what, or we don't want to appear weak. We're all
I think
human.
that's why I'm really emphasizing it because I think, yeah, even I had, I was kind of backed into a corner where like I had to get help from
Yeah.
all these different
Yeah.
places. And I really had to do it for my son so that I could remain highly functional for
Sure.
him. But I think so many of us, we just feel like we're too proud. What are they going to think if I ask them for help? You've got to just do what's best for you
Yeah.
and not worry about it, what other people think. And that's why, like, in all these major decisions, I've had people say, well, did you ever have anyone challenge you or question you on these unconventional decisions? No, surprisingly. But I think it's because I didn't hide it. I was wide open about it. This is who I am. This is the decision I'm making. This is why I'm going to make it. That's it. And I
And
think
it sounds like
people
you led with confidence. You're like, this is what I'm doing. So you
yeah,
didn't leave that door open for like, oh, should I go here?
yeah,
Should I ask this
you
person?
know?
Nope, this is what I'm
And
doing.
I think people just sense when you're being true to yourself, when you're really aligned with your authentic self, I think they sense it.
I do too.
Yep.
And there's nothing to question.
Then there's
Like, oh yeah,
nothing.
she knows what she's doing. She's got a plan.
Mhm.
She's making she's she's in her lane. She's going for it.
Mm.
Whatever
Yeah,
it is.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
We have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe in ourselves because
But it's hard. I mean,
it is.
the whole believing thing, like, I mean, I think I struggled with low self-esteem when I was younger and but yet maybe that's what the path that led me to really working on myself, self-development and all of that. But confidence is hard. It's a hard thing to develop. And you just have to take one baby step. It's just amazing how we're all scared to start a business or take that new job or ask that person out or whatever the thing is, but we really have nothing to lose. We really don't by just taking a step
Yeah.
in one direction and then that step leads to something else, another step and then another and before you know it, wow, there's a little bit of confidence in there. Kind of cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, we can do one thing at a time
One
for
thing at a
sure.
time. Let's slow down.
You're good, Christina. We circled back.
We did.
What an incredible story. And your podcast, She's Brave. You are such a brave and inspiring person for so many people. Your story with your husband and your new husband, and what a role model for your son with the way that he put everybody first, including yourself. You took care of everybody. He's a lucky guy to have a mom like you. And it's incredible the decisions you made and the way that you're telling your story now, how, yeah, this was the right thing for me. And I really thought about who I was and I made the decision that was aligned with that. And I think that that's such an amazing lesson for all of us. We have to go with our gut, however you want to word it. Just be aligned with your true self, be who you are and own it. Go for it. One thing that I'm grabbing from all this is just to reach out to your support system. They're there to help you. They're there to celebrate your joy and your hardships as well. So anything else you want to kind of add to that?
I think the only thing I want to add is just how amazing it has been to take this journey of self discovery and find my purpose, knowing that my purpose is to share my story, but not so much as I said, me share my story, but I am having so much fun and learning so much about brave women all over the world and their stories and how they got through it so that one day their story or my story will be someone else's survival guide. So that's really my mission. And She's Brave podcast is stories of women being brave in all different ways. We've got women living with cancer and reframing the whole thing. We've got journalists, we have every kind of person you could imagine. And it's to help inspire other women to be brave because I had so many people say to me, I'm not like you. And I'm like, yes, you are. You have it in you. You are. You are brave.
I love it. Thank you for sharing your story and thank you for starting that podcast because I know that's going to be something that helps so many people. I can't wait to listen personally. So it's called She's Brave. And when is it launching? When can we
Yeah.
find it?
Yeah. Yeah. So the launch date is really special. It's January 2nd, 2023, which was Bill's birthday. So I'm launching on my late husband's birthday.
Love
And I have a webpage, she'sbravepodcast.com. You can also connect with me on Instagram. It's at She's Brave Podcast.
Okay, I'll find you. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you for listening. I hope you've been inspired to slow down and start living at your own pace.
please subscribe and share with someone who could benefit from this message. And I'd really be honored if you left a review. To learn about new episodes and for more encouragement, follow on Instagram at Let's Slow Down 2023. Remember, this is a process, so go easy on yourself, be gentle, and take all the space you need to thrive.